Hello, everyone. I'm Gregor Kyotola, and this is my presentation on my leadership development plan. This class has taught me about leadership from a different perspective than I had previously received. My vast leadership training with the Army focused on situational practice and tactics, but had very limited qualitative analysis into leadership. In other words, we learn by doing, not by studying. This course takes the opposite approach by focusing more on learning about topics from the textbook and then applying them through interactions with classmates in learning circles and the thought-provoking simulations provided by CapSim. It challenged me to take a step back and analyze my leadership from a different point of view and become more self-aware of what I was doing as a leader and how it may not be the best way. I assumed that because I had the Army training and experience that I would not learn anything from this course, but I was proven wrong. This quote from one of the Latin proverbs I thought would be pretty fitting for this leadership development plan, that it is absurd that a man should rule others who cannot rule himself. I think it resonates well. Throughout human history, leadership has always been the driving factor to the survival of groups. From tribal leaders determining when the time to move their camps again was right to catch the buffalo in their migratory path and keep the tribe fed for the next season, to United States President John F. Kennedy when he decided not to invade Cuba, even against all of his generals' wishes, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, thus avoiding global nuclear devastation. Defining leadership is easy. It is the process by which one individual or group of individuals influences the efforts and decisions of others towards a goal, whether that be buffalo or bombs. However, what is much more difficult to define is what effective leadership is and how it is developed. Every leader is different in the way they lead, and not one way is the right way. George Patton may not have possessed the best leadership method for running a Fortune 500 company, and likewise, Jeff Bezos may not be the most suited person to lead armies in North Africa. Leadership is presented foremost by the situation that deems that the leadership is necessary. The story of the born leader is a fantasy restricted to those of the ruling class who are predetermined to be leaders the moment they are born. The rest of the notable leaders of history are often ordinary people that find themselves in extraordinary situations. Abraham Lincoln was an average lawyer before dabbling into politics and finding himself in charge of the newly founded Republican Party and consequently the Civil War. Steve Jobs just wanted to work with his colleagues to make an easier to use computer before soon becoming one of the most well-known computer revolutionaries of our time. The passengers of United Airlines Flight 93 were simply trying to reach their destination before being pressed into having to try and wrestle back control of their airplane from hijackers and ultimately crashing it into Pennsylvania, thereby saving an unknown number of lives. In each of these cases, it can be noted that people are just navigating their way through life just like everyone else, when either opportunity or catastrophe redefine their role to become a leader. But simply becoming the leader because the situation demanded it is not enough. To avoid failure, being or quickly becoming an expert in whatever field the leadership role is in is necessary. Colin Chamberlain of the 20th Maine was a professor before the Civil War started. Due to his high level of education, he was chosen to be an officer when he volunteered to fight in the war. But just because he was well-versed in the history of Alexander the Great and the tactics of Napoleon did not mean that he was an expert in his post. The situation dictated that he become the leader of the group, but his determination to be a good leader by studying military doctrine, drilling with his subordinates, and seeking mentorship from his superiors to become the best at his new position led him to become one of the greatest military leaders of the war. A leader with the opportunity to lead and the expertise to lead effectively is enough to classify them as a leader. But to be a good leader requires something that books and lectures may not provide, and that is solid integrity. Leading requires a pause to ask oneself, is what I'm doing right? A leader must know what decision is best for the subordinates, but not at the cost of everyone else around them. Enron, for instance, cooked their books so that their company would be better off. What may have been good for their company in the short term, their lack of integrity led the entire company to fall, and any other industries to change as a result. Making the right decision can be harder than making the easy decision. Lastly, and one of the most overlooked skills a leader must possess to be successful, is emotional intelligence. This trait is arguably one of the least emphasized traits when discussing leadership, but it may be the most important, as it is a driving factor behind the relationships that enable leadership to take place. A leader must have the empathy to understand what their subordinates are going through. Without this empathy, a leader may not know when they have been pushing their subordinates too hard or are making decisions that the subordinates do not approve of, and this could lead to losing support of their subordinates. Understanding how peers and superiors are feeling or what they are thinking is also very important. A leader should not make decisions that their superiors won't like without evidence and cause to back up that decision. If a leader goes against their superiors too often, they likely will not be a leader for much longer. This empathy and feedback from all levels, subordinates, peers, and superiors, is called the 360-degree feedback, and it is crucial to a leader's success. Just as important, though, is self-awareness. This is often overlooked by many leaders as either hubris or success blinds them from themselves. A leader without self-awareness is like a car at night without any headlights on. The leader must know what it is that they want and how they intend to get there if they are to light their path. Lastly, understanding their own needs is also invaluable. Many good leaders forget to take care of themselves. This usually leads to burnout, and that can have detrimental effects on both the leader and the team as a whole. Which leads me to the Triforce leadership model. So I made this model just kind of out of the blue. I was trying to think of what would be both cool looking and also really explain the model. So we have the three main triangles here: expertise, integrity, and situation. Notice that expertise and integrity hold up situation. It's like a base. Without these two, when the situation does arrive to be the leader, if you don't have expertise and integrity, you're not going to be a good leader. Additionally, all of it's encapsulated by the 360-degree feedback, and in the center of the core of the whole thing is your self-awareness. So yeah, that's our model. So going to the reflections on what I've learned. I've definitely learned a lot, but the key takeaways are to know yourself, as it's good to take some time to reflect on who you are and what your strengths are, but also identify your weaknesses, as we did with the VIA character survey. You're also not the only one growing. You got peers all around you, not even in this class, but outside of it too. Developing with your team and getting feedback from them can be invaluable to learning more about yourself. With the simulations, I found that I had rated myself lower than the simulation scored me. So don't always underestimate yourself. But conversely, also don't overestimate yourself, because I did that with the Capstan Box crisis management. And that brings me to the leadership philosophy that I have, which is pretty simple. Be humble. Most of the toxic leaders that I've had the displeasure of working under in my time were not adept in the first point that I made. Humility is not just important for leaders, but for everybody. People forget that they have others to their left and right. They get so caught up in what they are doing that they forget where they came from and how they got there. If a leader remains thankful every day and exhibits their gratitude, then others will radiate this and morale will improve. Follow the golden rule. Do not do unto others that you would not have on yourself. At least I think that's how it goes. Lastly, doing something. Sounds obvious, but I've seen a lot of people fall into the trap of doing nothing when a problem presents itself. Either through panic or fear, many leaders will choose to wait or spend an absurd amount of time delegating over which path to take. A leader needs to lead. So whatever challenges arrive, they must be willing to meet it head on and make some decision. Remember, any decision is better than no decision. The last thing for this presentation is briefly go over my 3-year plan to become a financial manager. The ultimate goal is CFO, but that can wait. So without further ado, I plan to continue learning more about corporate finance so that I can become an expert financial leader. This can be done through books outside of what I'm already reading for my MBA in finance, and also through working with my supervisor, the VP of Finance. I also intend to study, leading in corporate finance specifically. This course and other courses I've done about leadership, they're great, but there's certain situations that come up in the back office, especially with finance. So I need to expose myself to some of those situations and really understand problems of leading a finance team specifically. And lastly, practice. I haven't been in a managerial role for some time now, and I'm a little worried that I'm getting rusty. So if I can find some groups that are looking for some leadership, like a volunteer group leader or something like that, I can practice what I've learned and prepare myself for the manager role. And that's it. Much has changed about how I view myself as a leader as this course unfolded. I certainly realize that I have much to learn, and that to be an effective leader, it takes a discipline to understand that no one can know everything there is to know about leadership, and no one has the perfect answer to every problem. I will take what I have learned here and use it to succeed in making my dream of becoming a chief financial officer a reality.